Long before the heart of Africa was ever mapped, explorers were irresistibly drawn to this secret world. Africa's greatest secret of all, for thousands of years, was the source of the world's longest river, the Nile. The Nile is unique among the world's rivers. Some call it the most important river on Earth because it gave life to the first great civilization. To a geologist like me, this desert is a rich and productive environment. Yet just a mile from the river, I don't find a single living plant. As long as 8,000 years ago, farmers diverted water from the Nile to irrigate their crops and made the desert bloom. Without the Nile, there would have been no Great Pyramids, no advanced civilization with all its innovations in language, art, and astronomy. Each summer, the water level of the Nile rose several feet without a single drop of rain falling in Egypt. The early Egyptians built structures to measure the rise of the river precisely. But a few times in history, the river mysteriously failed to rise for several summers in a row, causing famine throughout Egypt. Every year, the farmers watched the river and wondered, where does all this water come from? This was the Nile's first great mystery. In 1858, a British explorer set out to solve the mystery of the Nile. He proclaimed Lake Victoria the one true source. There was one minor problem, though. He was wrong. Lake Victoria contributes only a fraction of the Nile's waters. The main source of the Nile is in the rugged highlands of Ethiopia. The riches of Egypt are a gift from Lake Tana. Over 80% of the Nile's water comes from Ethiopia's Blue Nile and its tributaries. My goal is to lead the first team down the entire length of the Blue Nile, from here in Ethiopia all the way to the Mediterranean. 3,000 miles.
My grandfather is a farmer in Egypt. He gets 100% of his water from the Nile. I promised him when I go to the river source, I would bring him a vial of holy water. The Ethiopians treasure the Nile, just as we do in Egypt.
As we head down the river, the whole team is pumped. Most of the wild rivers on every continent have already been run, but not the Blue Nile. This is one of the last great river expeditions left in the world. No one has ever succeeded in running this entire river from source to sea. All those who've tried it have either died or given up. As a geologist, these lava flows have a certain fascination for me. Lava flows like this one pinch the river together, forcing all the water through a narrow channel, creating huge rapids. But the volcanic rocks are as sharp as knives, and our rafts are made of fabric. Really grasp the magnitude of this river's power until they set their eyes on one of the most magnificent sights in all of Africa, Sissi Falls.
Just let it go.
Over 200 million people depend on the Nile, and that population is projected to double in the next 25 years. Can the Nile support all these people? For over 1,000 years, whenever Ethiopia threatened to dam the Nile, the Egyptians took that threat seriously. If the river were diverted, Egypt would die. Who owns the water in the Nile? That night, we camped right at the border of Sudan. It's a dangerous place. Saskia, Miriam, and Muhammad are terrified about crossing into a country where civil war has been raging on and off for almost 20 years. They'll leave us here and rejoin us later in Khartoum. As soon as we crossed the border, Gordon and I took off exploring Sudan, the most mysterious country on the Nile. Was the reason the shade was normal. Here in Khartoum, the capital of Sudan, the two rivers converge. The White Nile comes in on the right under the bridge to join our much larger Blue Nile. It was great to have the team back together again. War and violence are widespread in the Sudan, and yet we never once ran across a single militant extremist. Here we were surrounded on all sides by happy, good-hearted Muslim people giving us the warmest of welcomes, and they were amazed at how far we'd traveled down the Nile.
Pasquale, how did you say hello?
We're heading for the ancient city of Meroe, one of the Nile's best-kept secrets.
لي فيك شجون وأمنيات وأحلام وأغنيات ولحوم في الصبا وغرام أهلي فيك يا نيل مخلصين وكرام للحزين ماسحين دمعة الآلام.
In the remote desert of Sudan, The Nile flows right past an ancient ghost town few outsiders have ever visited. We're among the lucky few. The Nubians ruled this region of the Nile for over 1,000 years. Over 2,000 years ago, these pyramids of Meroe were surrounded by forests. When the Nubians cut all the trees down, they allowed the sands to blow in and hastened their own downfall.
I feel the loss of a great civilization and the loss of the forests. The systems that support life are so fragile. If we don't nurture them, they turn to sand and dust.
Near the border of Sudan and Egypt, the Nile River flows into Lake Nasser. A fishing boat captain warned us that we'd never get across Lake Nasser safely in our tiny rafts. To make up for lost time, I decided that Gordon and I should keep crossing Lake Nasser by night on our own. Big mistake. A huge windstorm came up out of nowhere.
The wind was gusting up to 60 miles an hour, and the cold spray was freezing us to the bone. We were 10 miles from shore. If a big wave knocked us overboard, there'd be no way for anyone to find us, and we'd die of exposure.
I was revived by Pharaoh's dream and a remarkable survival story.
When the Nile Valley was flooded, ancient monuments disappeared beneath Lake Nasser, but this one survived. In 1260 BC, the Egyptian pharaoh Ramses the Great had this temple built along the banks of the Nile.
As an Egyptologist, Miriam lives and breathes this stuff.
"40 years ago, the new man-made lake was about to flood this temple. To save it, workers carefully cut the huge temple apart and moved it block by block to higher ground.
Moving this temple was a heroic effort. If they can pull that off, Gordon and I could finish what we set out to do.
My Egyptian ancestors once had two things to fear from the Nile: too much water and too little. But no longer.
The Aswan High Dam has put an end to the catastrophic floods that once killed thousands of people. But the dam is a mixed blessing because the summer floods no longer enrich the farmland. They no longer leach salts out of the soil.
Look how high the river used to be.
Without the summer floods, there's no more need for these Nilometers. The markers the pharaohs used to track the yearly rise of the Nile.
Miriam told us how the pharaohs felt blessed by nature and God. The Nile was the perfect trade route. The trade winds carried the sailboats upriver, and then the river's flow brought them back down again. This turned the Nile into a river of gold.
Survey, boy. Yet after visiting the source of the Nile, all this looks different to me. For 3,000 years, Egypt was ruled by pharaohs like Ramses the Great and the female pharaoh Hatshepsut. The Nile turned them into living gods. No wonder they worshipped the river. It was 115 degrees when Miriam took us to the Valley of the Queens, where we visited the tomb of Queen Nefertari, the favorite wife of Ramses the Great.
At the tomb of the pharaoh Tutmosis III, I told my friends how the Nile was revered as a passageway into both life and death.
And for me too, this has been more than a river trip. It was like an inner voyage. It did change me.
Reaching Cairo was a milestone. After months of sand dunes and mud huts, the city dazzles me like some fabulous mirage.
With the Nile as their power base, the pharaohs ruled for 3,000 years. Their dynasties are long gone, but the river's spiritual power remains.
I think that I've gained something spiritually from this trip. Sharing this expedition with Pasquale has, it's shown me that really anything is possible if your heart's in it.
After 4 long, grueling months and 3,000 miles, we finally made it to the Mediterranean. I can't believe it. We're the first people in history to go all the way from source to sea on the Blue Nile. As we finally hit the surf and the salt water, I was flooded with exhaustion and pride and just overwhelming joy.
The river connects people.
The times that meant the most to me are the simple, everyday encounters with people along the river. You know, Gordon and I had some real rough spots along the way, but he came through when the chips were down and I needed him. He saved my life more than once. We've all got infinite respect now for this river. You know, we realized that when we finally stepped on the beaches of Alexandria, our final destination.